In this session, we're just going to have a little bit of a look really at what does homeschool look at like just now, what does those networks, these groups that are doing such great work. So let's start with Esther. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're involved with and what's your organisation doing?
Hi, I'm Esther, and I've been involved with CHESS, which is Christian Home Education Support Service. I've been a member for I think about 21 years or so, and I've been involved in the committee since 2012, I think. So CHESS, it rebranded at some point, but it was set up in the early 90s, basically as home educating was starting to take off in the country, and they gathered together because people were scattered here or there as a means to largely connect people. That was the initial reason of being, I suppose, was so that people could feel connected. And it's developed over the years to support and equip home educators. So we're not based in any one place. We're spread out. We've got a committee of about, trying to think how many are on it now, half a dozen people, and I'm the furthest north. I'm near Glasgow, and we've got people down in the north of England and on committee south of England. So we're all over the UK. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. And Classical Conversations. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing as well.
Hi, so I'm Beth. I was home educated myself, and now I home educate with Classical Conversations. Classical Conversations is a curated Christian curriculum that's designed around community, and we passionately believe that education is discipleship. So it was really lovely to hear Pastor Dave talking more about that this morning. Our curriculum is built around this worldview that education is discipleship. So our mission is to know God and to make him known. We believe that the purpose of education is to know God and to make him known. So we teach children to think well, to speak well, to reason well, and we do that in a community model. All parents have to choose a method by which they will educate their children. And at CC, we use the natural God-given gifts and skills of learning in order to equip parents to do that. So we are all about supporting parents, helping parents to educate their children, disciple their children, to know God and to make him known. One of our we believe statements is we believe that God trusts parents with their children, and so should we. So we're fairly young as an established organisation in the UK, only 4 years old here. And we have a few communities up and down the UK, Glasgow and Dundee, West Lothian, so growing in Scotland, and definitely want to grow more and support parents who maybe are a little bit nervous about, we want to take our children out of school. We know that the agenda that school has is not what we believe in, but we just need help to do that. So Classical Conversations is there for parents to help them to do that.
Brilliant, fantastic. And Yvonne, tell us from your perspective, how's homeschool and meetups, what's the state of play at the moment? How do you think it's going at the moment?
Okay, so I've been using Classical Conversations for 5 years and started the Glasgow community 5 years ago. And over that time, it has grown from just my son and I sitting at home working through everything to we have a thriving community, and like we said, we also have communities in West Lothian and in Dundee, and it's beautiful. It really is, the whole having a community there together, but not delegating your own responsibility. The fact that the parents are still the one that is ultimately in charge, and we work together. There's like a triangle between the parents that have stepped up into one of those classical skills leader roles where they're trained to try and help equip you to use the curriculum, and the child. There isn't in some places when you opt to employ somebody else to tutor or teach your child, they kind of take over that responsibility. In a lot of instances, you end up that relationship between the teacher and the child, and the parents left out, whereas with Classical Conversations it's a triangle and we all work together.
Perfect. So overall quite a positive situation. Yeah. Quite productive going forward. Is it something that you would definitely see as got a good framework for developing and building on as we're going forward?
Oh, absolutely. The fact we in Glasgow have not only the young foundations years, which takes children up to age 12, but we also have in August we'll have at least 3 of the high school years going right through. So, and the education provided to the different age groups it's unique in what it does, but it also builds on each other. So yeah.
Brilliant, fantastic. Joshua, perhaps you can answer this one. We've got a number of challenges coming up in the legal realms at the moment. There's a bill going through Parliament in Westminster just now. Obviously, education is a devolved matter for ourselves here in Scotland, but it's something that could impact us in terms of this schools and wellbeing bill that's going through, and the impact that will have in terms of a register for home education, and how might that impact us, and what might that bring in terms of challenges to us?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to say, I'm happy to wave the flag for chess and classical conversations as well. You could be members of both and benefit from both, as my family has done. But yes, we do have challenges. Who has read any of the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill 2024? Oh, I'm impressed. Yeah, not the most exciting of evenings, is it? But a crucial thing to grapple with the legislation currently before the House of Commons and now the House of Lords in Westminster. Mention the Scottish context in a second, but this is the bill that many home educators for years have been fearing. It's the bill that expands the educational remit of the state in such a way that home educating families in England and also in Wales will be subject to things such as a case file that's maintained on each of their children who's being home educated, invasive data required from them, and an updated case file that supplies information on what they're being taught, which of the parents is spending time with which of the children and for how long, what the basis of instruction is, any extra sort of curricular activities they're involved with, anything of an educational nature, which could extend to Sunday school participation, youth groups, music tuition, whatever it may be, is going to be monitored by the Department for Education. But it would be a mistake to think that the Children's Wellbeing Bill, which interestingly only mentions the word well-being twice, it's very much a bill that's designed to expand the state's control, is limited in its impact to home educators. It's actually on 2 fronts. The Secretary of State for Education is increasing her oversight of all schools and independent educational institutions. It's going to be harder to start a school. It's going to be more difficult to report back to the government. There are going to be more exacting standards. Essentially what we're seeing is the state moving on 2 fronts, both to dominate the school arena, funneling students into the state system, and on the other hand, extending, as it were, its Ofsted-like powers to every household in England and Wales. Now, you rightly noted that education is a devolved issue in Scotland. However, we know that the same desire is present in local authorities across Scotland, as we frequently see from the experience of home educating families who interact with local authorities on the subject of education. 2 years ago, the Scottish Parliament consulted on home education, seeking to bring forward a register, which at that time the Conservatives in Westminster were pushing. And the end result of that is that we haven't had a coercive register imposed in Scotland, but we know for a fact that many would like to see that come into force. And if it were the case that Westminster goes forward with its plans for a register, we will see, I believe, calls in the public sphere, particularly led by local authorities, for the same to happen here. A little bit like we're seeing with the conversion therapy bill. Holyrood is happy for Westminster to get the work done and then to copy and paste all of the content back to the Scottish context. So it's no time to be resting at the present.
And does anyone else want to maybe add anything to that in terms of what might be some of the practical challenges on a day-to-day basis as home educators, as co-op organisations? What might be some of the differences, and how do we maybe need to approach things slightly differently? Or perhaps what can we do to push back against this, what some may see as state overreach in a sense?
I think from a classical conversations point of view, this is where we really believe in Christian freedom and freedom to follow Christ. And we know and are trusting that God's gospel hasn't been shut down yet, that, the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. And as we heard, the church is made up of families, and families are responsible for educating their children, and we believe that. So we live that out, and we trust the Lord for that. I think for classical conversations, we don't take any government funding at all. We are about supporting parents. So there is a strength in that we can support parents. We're there for parents. So we are not pretending to educate children. We are there for parents. And I think that will keep us in the Lord's grace through these turbulent times, and we will be able to support parents who want to take back that responsibility for educating their children.
Perfect. And in terms of that home education side of things, obviously it's a growing thing, not just in the church but outside of the church as well. I suppose just as a sort of segue of that, there's a lot of people that are maybe not Christians, not part of the church, but they're concerned about what's going on in the education sector. They want to be looking at different options for their children. And home education for some of those people is a viable option, and certainly linking in with that. How might we be able to address these challenges, but also be able to continue to provide that support for those people, perhaps, I suppose, as a soft evangelistic tool as well?
I mean, there are other organisations out there that reach out to the home education community as a whole that aren't specifically Christian, and I think that is often where people's first point of call is. There's Education Otherwise and some others. I think it probably depends, like in terms of group to group. I mean, our chess is very, in terms of membership, you need to be a Christian, and there's a statement of faith that we have, and to come on board. Does that mean if we got a phone call, one of us got a phone call from someone who wasn't a Christian, would we help them? Of course we would. We will help anybody who's interested in education in any way that we can. But you're right, it is growing, and I think there's often a divide within the home education community between Christian and secular, because our worldviews we were talking about earlier are so very, very different, and we're coming at it from a very different perspective. So sometimes it's hard to find the commonality, I think.
I think for classical conversations, our mission is to know God, but also to make him known. So even just existing, when people hear and they're looking into home education, and they're looking and they're reading the statement of faith, on our website, they're seeing what we believe. And we know that God can use anything to save people. So we are raising children who are going to make God known and make him known powerfully, that are not scared to speak the name of Jesus in public. So I think that is part of our mission, is that we are accessible. As you said, the worldviews are completely different. I can't imagine an unbeliever with a secular worldview feeling comfortable in a classical conversations community. However, they are welcome, and they can see and they can read about us and they can hear. And we are raising unbelievers. Our children are being raised to know Christ. So in a classical conversations community, the focus is the gospel. It is to know God, and then as those children come to know God, that they themselves will go and make him known.
Perfect. And how, Yvonne, perhaps you can speak to this one. How does your network help to support and encourage children to engage in that increasingly secularized society?
I guess part of it is that as we are educating our children and we are showing them what is true, we're also allowing them to question in a safe environment, somewhere where actually it's okay to have a really good relationship with your parents, which seems to be pushed against a lot in secular circles. It's more, the kids all the same age and they'll talk to each other, and it's kind of peer raising, whereas with us, they can maybe hear something when they're at a group which is, not a biblical worldview is being portrayed there, but they're comfortable enough to come to us and talk to us about it, and we can give them the tools to think things through and ask the questions, and maybe it's something we don't know the answer to at that point in time, but part of the classical method is you're given the tools to go and find out. So we might go, okay, that's a really good question, how are we going to find that out? Let's go to the Bible. What does the Bible, can we say something there? Is there somebody else in community? Who are your friends? I mean, although we come together in community one day a week, a lot of us meet up at other things outside that, and being raised up with fellow believers, and children that you can grow with, that you can wrestle with ideas. And even in the challenge program, I mean, some of the books and the questions they're asked to wrestle through are written by people who don't have a biblical worldview, but they can take that on board and say, well, do I agree with this, and why do I agree with it? I once heard somebody who had graduated from classical conversation speaking, and she said one of the things she would take away was throughout her challenge years, her and her peers may have had some very serious conversations with each other and on completely different levels, but they were able to work together, come to an agreement, and at the end of the day they were still best friends. And when she left, she said when she left classical conversations, the one thing was her faith wasn't her parents' faith, it was her own faith, because she was able to do that.
Brilliant, fantastic. Esther, perhaps just in wrapping up, what if there was one thing that you would want everyone here to know about chess, what would that be?
That we exist. No, but seriously, that we exist, that we're there to support home educators, specifically Christian home educators in the journey. We're also there partly to promote, so we'll try, we haven't done this too much, but have stands at different conferences, so that, you know, that hopefully as the church is thinking more about, or people thinking about Christian education rather than secular education, that they know that there's others out there. We try and support our members. You can see over on the table, we provide a magazine 3 times a year. We do day conferences throughout the country, usually twice a year. And there's a big holiday down in Wales for a week at a time when a lot of families are able to connect. I realise that if you live in the north of Scotland, that's a long way to go, but it has to be, it was central for the whole of the UK, but really that we're there, and like things like this education welfare bill that's coming out, we have information on our website, you know, so that actually, you know, for some people it's like, well, I don't know how to respond to these things, what do I do? So we hope to try and inform our members as well. So.
Perfect. And Beth, the same question for you. What would you want everyone to know about classical?
She stole my line. We're here. We exist. Classical. No, it's good. It's really good. Yeah, we are here. And I think perhaps the biggest takeaway would be that the less trodden path is not as scary as it may seem, because we have people here to support you to do it. We are people of the narrow way, and yet so often we walk the broad way of education because it's what we know and what we've been brought up to do, and we're just carrying on that path. And I think with classical conversations, we can walk that narrow way of Christian education, Christian home education, and we can do it supported, we can do it in community, which strengthens us, which equips us. And we can do it to the glory of God. You know, you can do it. The church is made up of families like yours who need to disciple their children. So Classical Conversations exists to help your family to do that, to do it well.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, Esther, Beth, Yvonne, Joshua, thank you so much for sharing about the work of chess and Classical Conversations, and that concludes this part of the session. Thank you.